Have you ever wondered what really, truly separates people's financial lives? It's not always some huge, massive chasm. Sometimes it's a gap so tiny it's basically invisible, a difference of just 0.05 millimeters.
Now, obviously, we're not talking about a physical distance here. According to the author Zhang Liwen, this is all about a mental distance. It's this tiny, hair-thin gap in how we think that over time widens into a massive canyon of different results.
And here's the core idea, the whole point really. The real divide between being rich and poor isn't about the money you have in your pocket right now. Nope. It's about the mindsets you're operating with day in and day out. It's the buildup of all these tiny little choices, all starting from what's going on up here, that ends up shaping your entire financial reality. So, to really get a grip on this 0.05 millimeter difference, we're going to follow the thread from the very beginning to the very end. We'll start with the inner worldview, where it all begins. Then we'll look at the actions that worldview inspires, and finally, the results it creates.
Okay, so first things first, it all starts with the foundation, with our internal beliefs. Think of these as the seeds. Every action, every decision, and every outcome is going to grow from these seeds.
So where does that path first split? What's that initial 0.05 millimeter separation point? Well, it all comes down to one single powerful concept: responsibility.
On one side of the gap, responsibility feels like a heavy weight, something you want to escape from. And that leads to being passive, to just waiting for someone else to figure it out for you. But on the other side, responsibility is fuel. It's the driving force, the motivation to get up and make things better, not just for yourself, but for your family, for your community.
And how you see responsibility completely changes why you bother to learn anything new. It shifts the entire purpose of getting new knowledge. So the poor mindset, well, it learns to get a job, right? To get a paycheck. It's all about survival. The learning is often kind of passive, maybe even reluctant, and it's super easy to blame the system if it doesn't work out. But the rich mindset, it learns for leverage, for power, for a deep understanding of how things really work. It's active, it's enthusiastic, and it's driven by this genuine curiosity to just get it. So what happens when things get tough? When there's no immediate reward in sight, the future looks kind of bleak? How does this internal programming affect your sense of hope?
The first mindset, it hits a wall and just gives up. It accepts that things are out of its control. But the other mindset sees the quiet as an opportunity. When it looks like there's no hope, that's actually the time to prepare. That's the time to learn, to observe, to build skills, so that when the world finally does shift, they're ready to pounce. Okay, so if that's the internal worldview, how does it actually show up in the real world? Well, that brings us to part 2, action. This is where those beliefs become real, tangible behavior. And it all starts with how you engage with the very idea of opportunity.
One mindset is passive. It sits back and waits for the perfect opportunity to just appear, and complains when the world doesn't hand it over on a silver platter. The other mindset is active. It doesn't wait. It looks at the world, sees a gap, and acts decisively to create its own opportunity, bending the situation to fit its goals.
And this whole proactive versus reactive thing, it completely changes how they act inside a job, and maybe more importantly, why they decide to leave one.
And the contrast here is just wow. The poor mindset often leaves a job because they're unhappy, bad pay, bad boss, usually after things have already gone south. The focus is on salary, on security. The rich mindset, though, leaves a job after they've mastered it, after there's nothing left to learn about how that industry works. Just think about that for a second. One leaves because of failure, the other leaves because of success. And this is where it all leads. After years and years of these beliefs and actions compounding on each other, we get to the final result, a huge difference in how people manage their life, their career, and their money. It really all boils down to a core difference in management. And I don't just mean managing a business, I mean managing yourself within the bigger systems of the world. This right here is the fundamental dynamic. One mindset learns to follow the path, to accept the plan, and eventually becomes a piece, a tool in somebody else's system. The other mindset learns to create the path, to design the plan, and to use those tools to build their own system. It's the difference between being a cog in the machine and being the one who builds the machine.
Okay, but let's get down to brass tacks. Once the money is actually in the bank, how does each mindset handle it?
Well, one mindset sees money as something to be spent, often on flashy things to look wealthy and get that instant gratification.
It's basically a consumer good. The other mindset sees money as a tool, as capital. Every single dollar is like a little worker you can invest to create more value. It's spent strategically, not emotionally.
And this last one, honestly, this might be the most critical difference of all. It comes down to how they react when things inevitably, and they always do, go wrong.
For one mindset, a single failure can become a defining moment, an excuse for a lifetime of playing it safe. They blame others, they find excuses, and they see that failure as the end of the story. For the other mindset, failure is just data. It's a moment to hit the reset button, they look for reasons, they look for improvements, and they actually see the seeds of their next success inside that failure.
So after going through all these differences, the big takeaway here isn't that you have to make some giant leap. It's actually about a series of small, daily choices.
The entire journey is this little 0.05 millimeter shift. It's moving from being passive to being active, from waiting for things to happen to going out and creating them, from blaming your circumstances to owning your response, from just consuming your resources to actually investing them, and maybe most importantly, from being terrified of failure to learning everything you can from it.
At the end of the day, that tiny gap isn't decided by fate or by luck. It's a choice, a series of choices, really, that you make every single day. So the final question is a personal one. As you're standing on that razor's edge, that tiny 0.05 millimeter line, which way are you going to choose to lean?